I can honestly say I had no role models, maybe even to this day. So the idea of having women on the bema was not something I grew up with. I grew up in a conservative congregation, and I didn't find out till I got to HUC that my rabbi was actually trained at JIR. It was kept a secret. I grew up with all Orthodox teachers who wore tzitzis and shadels and wigs and fringes, and in a very, very traditional upbringing, although my household was not. I went to Camp Ramah and came back kosher right before my bat mitzvah, which mortified my parents, who were rebellious Jews. But I was named after a very pious grandfather, and I always felt like I channeled him. I went to Princeton as one of the first women, and then was an early person at HUC. I was the class that we moved from 68th Street to the New York building. We were the first class that was half women. But when I was at my interview, they said to me, we can't guarantee that you'll get a job. And, in those days, people were allowed to say lots of things. We had a professor who would start class gentlemen and footstools, because the women in the Midrash were going to be the footstools in the world to come. So I went into HUC not even knowing if I could become a rabbi. But when I decided not to go to medical school, I was already married. And my husband was probably the only person who believed that I could do this. So there were no role models. And when I wanted to start a congregation, every organization in the Reform movement stood in my way. And so my path was filled with all obstacles. And so it was very, very different. And I never let the difficulties guide me. I just knew that the world could be different, and I could create a congregation that was not politically contentious and that would love children as much as adults and engage them in learning. So I just pursued the dream without a plan, because there were no plans, and grew rabbis. And that's the joy of my life.